All Vikings, let's win this game.
One respected NFL analyst just made a prediction about the Vikings that has plenty of people talking. Meanwhile, one young defender is about to face the defining moment of his career. Kyler Murray's biggest controversy may have just been put to rest by someone who knows him better than almost anyone. And one former Viking is making headlines after saying that leaving Minnesota was actually the best thing that ever happened to his career. There's a lot to unpack today, so let's get into it. Sometimes the strongest vote of confidence doesn't come from inside your own building. It comes from someone looking at the entire league and deciding your team stands above everyone else. That's exactly what happened when ESPN analyst Ben Solak made one of his boldest predictions for the 2026 season. Despite all the uncertainty surrounding the Vikings offense and the quarterback competition, Solak still picked Minnesota to win the NFC North. That probably surprised a lot of people considering how competitive this division has become. Every single NFC North team finished above .500 last season, and nobody expects that battle to get any easier. But Solak believes there's one reason Minnesota has the edge over everyone else, and it starts with Brian Flores. He called Flores the best defensive coordinator in football, even putting his work ahead of respected names like Vic Fangio and Vance Joseph. That's incredibly high praise, but when you've watched this defense over the last few years, it's hard to argue. Flores has consistently found ways to confuse opposing offenses, disguise pressure, and get production from players that many fans outside Minnesota barely knew before they arrived. Even after losing veterans like Jonathan Greenard and Harrison Smith, there's still confidence that this defense can remain among the league's elite. Part of that optimism comes from how aggressively the Vikings attacked the defensive side of the ball during the 2026 NFL Draft. 4 of their first 5 selections were defenders, including Caleb Banks, Jake Golday, Caleb Tiernan, and Jacoby Thomas. Add experienced depth pieces like James Pierre and Isaiah Loudermilk, who already know Flores' system from Pittsburgh, and suddenly this defense starts looking even deeper than last year's group. The biggest weakness in 2025 was stopping the run. Minnesota finished near the bottom of the league in rushing yards allowed, even though they were much better than people realize on a per-carry basis. If those young defensive tackles help tighten up the middle, this defense could become even more dangerous. On the offensive side, Solak admitted there are still concerns. Questions remain about the offensive line, the running game, and whether Kyler Murray can finally deliver consistent football. But he also pointed to Kevin O'Connell's incredible ability to adapt his offense around whoever lines up under center. We watched him maximize Sam Darnold, Joshua Dobbs, and J.J. McCarthy in different ways, so believing he can build an offense around Murray isn't exactly unrealistic. That combination of Flores on defense and O'Connell on offense is becoming one of the greatest advantages this franchise has. And if both coaches once again get the very best out of this roster, winning the division suddenly doesn't feel nearly as bold as it did a few months ago. Replacing a Pro Bowl player is never easy. Replacing one who just signed a $100 million contract somewhere else? That's even tougher. But those moments can also define a young player's career. That's where Dallas Turner finds himself heading into 2026. After the Vikings traded Jonathan Greenard during the draft because both sides couldn't agree on a new contract, Philadelphia stepped in with a massive extension, while Minnesota decided it was time to move forward. Turner is now expected to take on a much larger role, and one NFL analyst believes he's about to surprise a lot of people. Bleacher Report's Alex Kay ranked Turner among the 5 most underrated players in the entire league. That's not based on hype alone. During the second half of last season, Turner started flashing exactly why the Vikings traded up to select him 17th overall in 2024. 6.5 sacks came over the final stretch of the year, including an impressive finish that showed growing confidence and a better feel for Brian Flores' aggressive defense. Now those flashes have to become consistency. There won't be any more waiting behind established veterans. This is his chance to become one of the faces of the Vikings pass rush, and the pressure that comes with it is very real. If he delivers, Minnesota could end up looking incredibly smart for making the difficult decision to move on from Greenard instead of committing another massive contract. There was another Vikings story making headlines for very different reasons. NFL insider Deanna Rossini recently found herself in an awkward situation after body camera footage from a January traffic stop surfaced. During the stop, she asked the officer what his favorite team was. His answer? The Vikings, followed immediately by the word unfortunately. That alone probably made a lot of Purple faithful laugh. Rossini then showed text messages with Kevin O'Connell in an apparent attempt to demonstrate her NFL connections. But what really caught attention was her joking comment about Minnesota's quarterback situation when she said, "Your quarterback sucks." She was referring to J.J. McCarthy, And while it was clearly part of a casual exchange, it also reflected how much outside skepticism still surrounds the Vikings quarterback room. Fair or unfair, people around the league continue questioning whether Minnesota has the answer at the position. That means players like Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy won't just be competing against each other this summer. They'll also be trying to prove the doubters wrong once the games actually begin. Before we continue, a quick favor. Subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and it helps this community keep growing. For years, one story followed a talented quarterback almost everywhere he went. It became one of those narratives that people repeated so often that eventually many fans accepted it as fact. The problem is, according to someone who actually shared the locker room with him, much of it simply wasn't true. Arizona Cardinals tight end Trey McBride recently addressed the long-running rumors surrounding Kyler Murray and the idea that video games somehow distracted him from football. McBride didn't hesitate. He said it was never really a thing. According to him, Murray wasn't constantly talking about gaming, and many of those headlines seemed to grow because people were searching for reasons to criticize a former #1 overall pick who never quite reached expectations in Arizona. That's an important perspective now that Murray is trying to restart his career in Minnesota. After the Cardinals decided to move on, the Vikings brought him in on a veteran minimum contract, hoping Kevin O'Connell can unlock the talent that made Murray one of the most exciting quarterbacks in football. The physical gifts have never disappeared. Elite arm strength, rare athleticism, the ability to create explosive plays when everything breaks down. McBride admitted that Murray's height and unusual throwing angles take some adjustment, but he also praised how successful they were together. Now those traits enter one of the league's most quarterback-friendly offensive systems. Naturally, the expectations are climbing. NFL.com analyst Bucky Brooks even suggested that if Murray wins the starting job and helps Minnesota become a legitimate contender, an MVP-caliber season isn't impossible. That might sound ambitious, but we've watched Kevin O'Connell revive quarterback careers before. Sam Darnold rebuilt his value here. Daniel Jones found new life. Now Murray gets his opportunity. Of course, none of this guarantees anything. J.J. McCarthy remains firmly in the competition, and training camp will determine who earns the job. But hearing someone like Trey McBride dismiss years of criticism gives Vikings fans another reason to wonder if the version of Kyler Murray we're about to see could be the one Arizona always hoped for. Not every player finds success with the team that drafted him. Sometimes the right fit simply comes later, and as frustrating as that can be for fans, it's part of the reality of the NFL. Former Vikings guard Ed Ingram recently opened up about exactly that after reviving his career with the Houston Texans. His words probably weren't easy for Minnesota fans to hear. Ingram called being traded to Houston the best thing to ever happen to his career. That's a powerful statement. Drafted by the Vikings during Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's first draft class, Ingram never quite developed into the dependable offensive lineman Minnesota hoped for. After 3 inconsistent seasons, the organization moved on, sending him to Houston for a 6th-round pick. Since arriving there, everything seems to have changed. Ingram credits offensive line coach Cole Popovich for helping refine his technique while constantly challenging him to improve instead of allowing bad habits to continue. He insists he always believed he had the talent. What he needed was the right coaching environment to bring it out. Now he's become an important piece of Houston's offensive line and is already talking confidently about chasing a Super Bowl. As Vikings fans, there's probably a little disappointment hearing that. Nobody likes seeing a former player thrive elsewhere after struggling in Minnesota. But football careers often depend on timing, coaching, and opportunity as much as talent. Fortunately, the Vikings appear to have found their own answer after selecting Donovan Jackson, who showed encouraging signs during his rookie season. Looking forward instead of backward is usually the healthiest approach. At the same time, the Kyler Murray conversation keeps picking up steam as more people around the league push back against the old criticisms that followed him in Arizona. Trey McBride's comments reinforce the belief that many of those maturity questions were exaggerated. If that's true, then Minnesota may have acquired far more than just an experienced quarterback. They may have found a motivated veteran eager to prove years of doubters wrong, and that could end up becoming one of the defining storylines of the entire 2026 season. This offseason has already given Vikings fans plenty to think about. We've got respected analysts believing Brian Flores can keep this defense among the league's best. Young players like Dallas Turner stepping into career-changing opportunities, a quarterback battle filled with unanswered questions, and former players reminding us how quickly things can change in the NFL. Nothing has been decided yet, but the foundation is there for this team to make some real noise. Let me know which story stood out to you the most and whether you believe the Vikings really can win the NFC North this season. No matter what happens, we'll be here following every step of the journey. Stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go!